Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. I'm Icarix and he's Kinagooses, and I just wanted to take over again.
Yes. Indeed he did. You prick.
That's me, your friendly neighborhood prick.
Yes. Well, hello again, dear viewers. We're back with another overdue video recording. Things have been very messy with us, and sometimes Icarix can't get his shit together. I was free all day today, and I don't hear anything back from him till not that long ago, and it's quite late in the evening.
Well, I was unexpectedly pulled into work. Today because apparently my manager forgot that there was no one in from a specific time, so they needed me to fill in that shift, basically.
Could you not use a little two-letter word that our Lord gave us?
Uh-huh.
You know what it is.
Yes, I know what it is. But do the dear viewers know what it is?
Well, it's a little two-letter word. You know.
Anyway, what's going on here now?
We are going over the usual campaign stuff. Sad to say, to dear viewers, for any who are eager to see nice battles and all that stuff, that we don't have any this part.
Yes, because a certain someone decided it was much more important to auto-resolve their battles and basically overlook the battlefield and overlook all the battle strategies instead of actually engaging in fucking combat.
Yes, and I know I do have a problem even when I'm playing on my own, that I auto-resolve too much, and, you know... but on the other side, it looks we're close to buying Octoduran off my immediate allies.
You have a serious problem, Kunagooses. You're not bloodthirsty enough to engage in this kind of game.
Yeah, let's just say the problem is I kind of get a certain point of what you could call battle fatigue. And I start to kind of tune out a bit more, and I decide just to auto-resolve more.
That's not how it works. You gotta get yourself in the game 24/7, man.
I know that. But yeah. So let's just say that certainly more work improvement needed. You know, but clearly you also felt that there must have been enough interesting content to not skip over.
Well, even though the battle strategies are tedious and laborious to edit, let's just say that all of this shit is important to see. Wouldn't you agree, dear viewers?
Well, we're chasing after the small Arverni army, or possibly we certainly drove them off, from Bagacum. We're moving the heralds of the 104 further in.
Well, there's a lot of forces.
Yeah, I was using a submod that allowed me to increase...
We have the heralds of the 104 and we have the friends of the 104. How many 104s do we have exactly?
Probably just the 104, but a few armies, because they're auto-generated names.
Uh-huh.
I can obviously change the names if I wanted, but I wasn't bothered to do that.
You can actually change the names?
You can change army names.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, you can.
Wow. Okay, then.
I just never bothered doing it.
If you had any names to change, what would you change it to exactly?
I don't know, because I kind of like the names to have a certain immersive element to it, and I would not know anything to do with how to articulate a nice Carthage-related name. I suppose I can come up with some basic ideas, but nothing particularly nice.
You're able to come up with all these cool names for the YouTube videos.
Well, yeah, but that's just being silly and describing what happens in a sense, and trying to be somewhat alliterative when I can. But when you're trying to come up with a name for an army that is sort of fitting in a theme or the faction theme itself, that's a little harder when you don't have one. Like with Rome, their armies are straightforward. It's Legio, whatever number and whatever other name on top. I can have a system that goes with that. Plus, I do it a bit Latin, so I can come up with some reasonable Latin name for other stuff. That's what I did in my own personal Rome campaign I did a while ago. I would give all the proper legions a legion whatever, and usually a name based off their location, except I think I had my first legion called Regialis because it was a royal legion because I went for a kingdom.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
And I think I had a legion name style for any governor armies. I forget what I used to describe them, but it was something to note that these were governors, and I might do something similar in the Seleucid campaign that we probably will be doing next. Which won't be till after the 1.3.2 patch comes out, which still hasn't come out yet. Yeah, so we decided to auto-reserve against the Stalkers of Kala.
And once again, an auto-resolve is
In that case, I don't think it was really worth fighting. Yes, but in that case, it wasn't really worth fighting. It's a tiny, tiny army.
In the name of Carthage.
Unless you want to see me steamroll a tiny army with my larger army.
The Razorbacks.
Stay for battle.
Yes.
Remember the plan. Always ready.
So we have 104 forces spread out all across the place. They don't even have the proper names. It should be like 2,400,000,000.
Well, because the 104 is a specific reference.
What's it a reference to?
I'm not sure. Probably it's to do with the Carthaginian Senate, my guess is.
Is it because it had 104 members?
Possibly. I don't actually know that much about Carthage's kind of government system, other than it was a republic, a kind of mercantile republic.
Ah, right. Yeah, that makes sense.
So, yeah, I got some books and stuff relating to Carthage, but I haven't read them yet. Well, I read part of Adrian Goldsworthy's The Fall of Carthage, which is a book about the Punic Wars. I bought a book called Carthage Must Be Destroyed. I can't get it right now. It's on one of my shelves, so I forget the name of the author who did it. And I got like 2-3 biographies in Hannibal. The famous Carthaginian general Hannibal Barca. The man who basically scared the shit out of Rome for a long time. But, yeah, so I need to kind of learn more. Plus, I don't think there's a whole lot we can truly know, because any and all written information from Carthage would have been destroyed. Because Rome, after the Third Punic War, Rome basically just obliterated the city of Carthage.
Welcome, worthy friend. Strength
And we decided to break our trade agreement with the Tulingi.
Well, it was fun while it lasted. Why wouldn't they be troubled waters? The enemy... I've noticed the enemy ships seem to do a lot of backing away from combat.
That's
I've
because, I
noticed this in
suppose,
the last few
that's
sessions.
because my fleets are stronger. Or the AI recognizes that my force is stronger, so it's running away to avoid it.
Come on, you damn cowards, face your death with dignity.
They're pirates, and I was at the honorable warrior types.
Well, I would assume that there would have been pirates out there who were like, ah, screw it, let's just die with dignity. At least we'll lose on our terms. I don't know, just figured there'd be some pirates like that.
Well, you're also dealing with a game and has this specific set of systems where if an AI force
Let me dream.
sees an army attacking it that it doesn't think it's gonna succeed against, it will retreat, default to retreating. Anyways, you start to build more ships, particularly artillery ships for this fleet.
The will of Yam.
Yes, I don't know what that's a nod to.
Yummy.
Maybe Yam is a god, but I'm only guessing.
Well, one thing's for sure, it's definitely yummy.
Ha. So funny.
Why, thank you. I'm a regular jokester.
Yes, indeed. So we failed some random inconsequential mission.
Sure, with those spies, it always ends up turning inconsequential.
Well, this has nothing to do with spies.
Steady as we go.
But yes, and we've plenty of a population surplus in Gallia Narbonensis.
How fun!
We're moving our fleet down towards Qart-Hadasht, which is Carthage.
Very, very slowly.
And we can start recruiting some more troops. Got a lot of Libby Phoenicians we can recruit from, which is our second class.
What's that you're recruiting now?
A lot of warships.
No, but what kind of warships?
Mostly artillery ships, but others are ones with marines on them. Well, I suppose all ships gonna have marines on them, but they're basically big ramming ships.
Oh, Massalia seems pretty reinforced there. Like a bit
Yeah.
of culture.
Yeah, building an upgrade, adding a new building in from our yellow slot buildings. And now we are upgrading further buildings in Bagacum. And now we are putting in library and fountains in Nemetokena.
Sure, they gotta get their knowledge somewhere on how to vanquish their enemies.
Yep.
So what else is Node good for other than war tactics?
Philosophy.
Ugh, philosophy,
Ethics.
philosophy, civilosity.
Ignore him, dear viewers. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Well, I suppose. Yeah.
That's because I only ever read books for war tactics instead of knowledge.
You don't really read books.
I read. Well, I'm a good boy. I read scholarly articles sometimes.
Oh, really? What was the last scholarly article you read?
So the last one I read was around 5 years ago. It was about some politician who had some really interesting ideas for the country, but it didn't end up panning out very well. So let's just ignore that.
Was the last one I read fully, to my knowledge, was probably a few months ago, and that was, I think, Jeffrey Ropp's article about reconsidering the Scythe Chariot's origins, which is a pretty interesting read.
A lot of political intrigue going on right here.
Just doing a lot of promotions of a lot of the women, because that provides a lot of bonuses, economic bonuses.
What kind of economic bonuses can we expect?
Small little
Shall
wealth
we hack at each
bonuses
other
and maybe
until our enemies
reductions to
can gorge
empire
themselves
maintenance.
on warriors' flesh? Or will it be peace?
This option demands that a faction becomes your...
Yeah, I was trying to see could I make
stop.
them a client state.
Now come on, that's just, you have to take that.
Basically, if I offer them 6,900 gold, they can become my client state.
Wise choice there, guys, wise choice.
So yeah, they're now my client state. And I was able to buy a settlement.
And I see you got a region through diplomacy.
Yeah, that's what I meant. I was able to buy a settlement.
Oh, right. Do we know what it is?
Yeah, that would have probably been Octoduron. Because, see, this is through the use of Timbe's Trade Regions submod, which lets you be able to purchase and sell, well, up until recently sell, but it was purchase settlements through use of your dignitaries.
Oh, okay.
So you put your dignitary in the area of a particular settlement, and you just leave them there, and over time they'll generate basically this, call it a percentage chance to be able to buy that settlement for a certain price if you have the amount. About 10,000 for a minor settlement and about 20,000 for a provincial capital.
Ready for battle.
And
Do your duties, man. To battle.
yeah, and then you get to buy it.
At once.
Dido's faithful.
Yeah,
Who are they faithful to? That's my
Dido.
question.
Dido was a sort of mythical-ish queen of Carthage.
So basically made up.
I would travel
Well,
many
I don't know for
miles.
sure if she was ever a real person, but she certainly
No, I mean,
exists in a
like-
lot of legends and stories about Carthage.
Are there any
And-
books? Are there any books out there that detail some of the religions of these people? Actually,
That's a good question. I don't know. See, again, I don't think we know a whole lot about how Carthage religion exactly functioned. We can make inferences to a certain extent. They originally hailed from Phoenicia, which is modern-day Lebanon, so they would have had gods that were, suppose, similar, I guess, to Arabian loosely gods, I guess, or I suppose even Canaanite gods were very similar. And so we know that the chief god, I think, at least for Carthage, was a god known as Baal Hamon. And he had a consort named Tanit. There's also a god known as Melkart, who I believe Herodotus did seem to think was basically Heracles. Or Hercules, if you're more familiar by that name. So there seems to be parallels between Melkart and Heracles.
How long can you stand aside and let these rats run free? When
They're the main gods I know for sure. DEI has also the temples to Astarte, which I know was a goddess worshipped in, like, maybe Mesopotamia? That's the best I can say. With Carthage specifically, it's likely their religion would have probably also been influenced by the people around them, like Greeks and Italians and whatever. But I think the problem is because Carthage itself, the city, was largely destroyed by the Romans after the Third Punic War, it can be very hard to have any exact written accounts or records from the Carthaginian side that might explain things. I believe there's been some debate about whether there was a child sacrifice tradition in Carthage. I think it's either there's been discoveries of what look to be infant bodies, bones, you could say.
do you ever think there's a possibility that the Romans could have kept certain memorabilia relating to these people just for safekeeping or anything like that?
Well, I suppose it's possible. I'd say the Romans could have probably written accounts of describing what Carthaginian religion might have been like, for example. I don't know any.
'Cause I figured
that
they'd
I
like
know.
to boast. I figured, they'd like to boast about their accomplishments.
Even then, I don't know for sure. I know they rebuilt Carthage to be a Roman city, but I don't know these nuances so well. Still a lot for me to learn, you could say.
Anyway, I suppose you're right.
So I'd have to see. All I know is a lot of information about Carthage is only we can find through a mixture of archaeology and Greco-Roman authors that survive, because there are also many authors that would not have survived, and anything from Carthage itself would have been long gone, considering what the Romans did to the city. So see, you decided to disband those two into Scutari.
I thought you were a big fan of the Scutari.
Indeed. My best guess is,
What has changed with you, Kinagooses?
well, I suspect it's possible that by this time the thorax reforms are probably about to hit very soon, and I may have decided to want to replace them with other infantry, like the Celto-Hellenic swords or the Libby Phoenician thorax swords.
Ooh, sweet. New life.
Because they'd be quite solid units to have. I know in the 1.2.8 patch the Celto-Hellenic swords from Asali got changed, but the AOR version wasn't. I don't know if they've been changed lately. I know AOR units got a bit of a revamping for some areas. In one of the more recent updates, like Galatia had a few changes to the AOR troops. Which we'll see at least quite a bit what their AOR looks like in probably the Seleucid campaign, which will be in a few months' time.
Hopefully.
Because Galatia is one of the areas I like to take quickly when playing as the Seleucids. Because Galatian units can be very handy to have. Their Levy Spearmen are kind of about as good as Thureos Spearmen. Not as good, but close enough to work. Until you get to the Thureos Reforms. And their Sword Infantry tend to do well for, well, much of the campaign. Plus, in the Thorax Reforms, you get access to Galatian Thorax Swords, which are beastly.
How beastly are we talking about?
Probably among the strongest Thorax Swords in the game, I'd say. And they also look really cool.
Really now?
Yes, they have masks.
Oh, wow, okay.
And we got pretty, I'd like to say reasonable, but there's a lot of issues and nuances to this evidence for it.
Sure, when is it never?
Yeah, there are a pair of terracotta figurines that were found in basically what is Darby now Turkey. One of them was found in Myrina. I don't know where the other one was found exactly. And they depict basically the same thing. A warrior with a large oval shield, wearing what looks like some kind of muscled cuirass, Paterigi's kind of skirt, if you will, and some kind of a bearded face. And it's thought the bearded face is a mask. And there's also I think it's in a museum in Germany now, but there's this basically Pergamon, which is a Greek kingdom based in Asia Minor, Turkey. They had this temple, I think it might have been, with a statue, elaborate art carvings and everything on it, dedicating to Athena Nikeporos. And in it shows, I think, what's probably meant to be a rough depiction of some of the battle of what's the battle called again? Magnesia, which is a big battle between Romans and Seleucids, which the Romans won. And they seem to depict what looked like this bearded face as a mask. So we have this, which suggests these guys might be Galatians. There's a bit of nuance whether they actually are Galatian, in fairness. It's a good question to ask, like, hard to say for definite. I know Dorothy Burr Thompson, who wrote part of her doctoral thesis, which was also her first published book, had a brief bit talking about the Myrina terracotta, where she said it was a Galatian, and he's wearing a bearded face mask, and identified the sword as Celtic. Nicholas Secunda, who also talked about the terracotta figurines, identified the sword as being a Celtic sword. But apparently, even if it is a Celtic sword, apparently Macedonians and Greeks and all them were kind of not above using them. So, put simply, we don't know. And the large oval shield could also be just a Hellenistic Thureos, because they did use those. And I believe we are running out of time.
Oh, bugger.